America, America's mayor, talk with America's mayor, call America's mayor, do whatever you want. Okay. But tonight we're going to focus on well, he's probably heading back. He's probably heading back to the United States, I guess. I guess he's heading back to the United States. And that is our missing president, who's been missing now for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks of important, critical things that are happening to our, first of all, to our national security, and then, of course, to our people, the people that he supposedly took an oath to represent. One would not have noticed that while he was in Ukraine, and the people of New Palestine, Ohio, were worried about whether they've been consigned to a lifetime of concern about getting cancer, exacerbated by the fact that his complete idiot of a Secretary of State made a statement that probably is one of the most dumbest made by a cabinet secretary. You, Joe, have made the dumbest made by any American politician. But your cabinet secretary announced, "Oh, you know, these train derailments happen all the time. There's like 1,000 of them a year. There are 1,000 train derailments in which toxic chemicals, 8 different ones, blow up. 3,500 dogs die, fish die, streams can't be used." How many of those are there? You want to find me another one, moron? Huh? I know you pretend to be a mayor. I got superintendents running apartment buildings in New York that were bigger than your city, and they're doing a better job than you are. Look, you've been a jerk since you started. When we had the supply chain thing, you were gone for 4 months on either paternity or maternity or some combination of both leave. That's fine. It's great for you to have babies, but not if you want to take care of the people of the United States and can't do that consistent with your responsibilities to help keep them alive. Because when a public official in your situation, Secretary of Transportation, is a lazy bum like you are, people die. But of course, nothing quite like your boss, right? Boy, he kills them left and right, doesn't he? I mean, let's begin with the fact that there'd be no Ukraine if it wasn't for him, right? Is there anyone that believes that Putin would have invaded Ukraine if Trump were the president? If you would like to leave your name, your number, New York has excellent psychiatrists, and they would be happy to help you with reality therapy because you need it. I mean, whether you hate Trump or you love him, or you're in between, there is no doubt in the world that Vladimir Putin was not invading Ukraine if Donald Trump was sitting there and Putin not knowing what the hell he was going to do. I don't know what he would do. Neither do you. Just like Ronald Reagan. That's what a president, that's what a leader instills. He instills fear in the people who want to hurt us. So let's take a look at the first of the 2 atrocities in the last 4 or 5 weeks that doom your presidency to, gee, I hate to say this with Jimmy Carter dying because I have empathy for Jimmy Carter. I never thought he was as bad a president as people thought. I mean, I supported Ronald Reagan. I worked for Ronald Reagan. He's the only president I ever worked for, really. And defeating him changed American history. But he was a patriot, loved our country, never did anything that I think was deliberately intended to hurt the United States of America. Seriously doubt he took bribes, my goodness. In fact, I know he didn't take bribes. Very few presidents have done that, but you and your degenerate family. Wow. Well, last couple of days in January, there's this balloon off the island of the Aleutian Islands in Alaska. So we don't know because we have no idea how engaged or unengaged you are. You could be very engaged or you could be sleeping all the time when you're in the White House. As far as we know, we don't know what you do there. You rarely ask questions, so we don't know how well informed you are or not. And when you do ask questions, you very often say very strange things indicating, well, indicating delusions and dementia. Like when you said that you gave the Purple Heart to your uncle in the White House after you were vice president at the request of your father, who asked you to do that at your inauguration for vice president. And then when you checked the record, both of them were dead for 6 years before you were inaugurated. Now, that could be a Joe Biden daily lie, or it could be worse than that, couldn't it? Couldn't it, Joe? It could mean that a whole little section of that brain is gone. Wasn't very big in the first place, but now that it's disappearing, it's getting to be dangerous. Now, here's why I think it was a delusion, and I spoke to a doctor about this. You were told that was wrong. You were told that, gee, Joe, you made a mistake. You must have been thinking of something else because your dad and your uncle never had this meeting with you in the White House. They couldn't have because they were both dead. That's a pretty definitive statement. And then 4 days later, you said it again without any apparent awareness that you had been told this. Now, what do logical people, because see, most of us do have the ability to reason, you don't. And most of us do have a complete brain, you don't. So let's see if we can use that for a second. So there are only one or two conclusions, right? They told you that. A matter of grave consequence. If you were treated like a president should be treated, not a dark prince, this would have been massive news. President's lost his mind. He thinks his father's alive 5 years after he's dead. President thinks it again. But you got nice low-key coverage for your delusion. So, you just think you could get away with it again? Well, that shows a certain kind of brazen arrogance that's consistent with one of the 5 symptoms of dementia. But the one that's the most consistent with it is you probably forgot that you were told. Because you forget everything. You can't remember your Secretary of Defense's name. And when you do remember his name, you call him the Secretary of the Military. You got a problem with him. I don't know what it is, but the psychiatrist could help you. They're excellent ones, by the way, in any number of federal prisons that have facilities for senile, elderly old bums like you. So they come to you with this balloon. Now, we don't know where the balloon is when they come to you, but we assume it has to be somewhere between off the shore of the Aleutian Islands or already over the Aleutian Islands into Alaska, because it could have been February 2nd. So that's where it would place it. I'll see if I can get it. So you say that you made a very heroic call. Now, I have noticed about you for my 35 years of knowing you that when you lie, it's always to the point of making things more heroic. That's when you become like a really miserable liar. Like, you were on the battlefield, you never were, that kind of stuff. So you'd be likely to say, I told them to blow it down. And the military told the commander-in-chief not to do it. Now, here's why I think you're lying, because the military couldn't possibly have given you this reason. They told you not to do it because it would hurt people on the ground. Geez, you were over northern Alaska. They don't even have Eskimos there. I'm looking for Eskimos there. You go a couple of thousand miles, there are no people. I don't think you have to have, even if you did it by luck, you wouldn't hit anybody there. You were like, I don't know, you might have been close to the North Pole, but it's not Christmas time, so you don't have to worry about it, idiot. The military didn't tell you that, unless you got a bunch of real jackasses in the military.
Do you think he knows Alaska's part of the U.S., Mayor?
That's a possibility. That is a distinct. You think I'm kidding? Obama once said there were 43 states. Obama once said, United States, I've been to all 43 states of the United States. Now, we don't know if he was to 43 states and he thinks, well, you're not part of the United States unless I went there, or he thinks they're 43. But I mean, Obama, that was a mistake. This guy, there are definitive brain cells that are missing. They it went away. Well, we're going to see if we can follow this balloon a little bit and your critical decision making. Critical decision making. Wow. So,
Thanks for joining us. America's Mayor live on a very busy news night. Be sure to comment below. Let us know who you are, where you're tuning in from. Of course, we are following some big stories across the country tonight, including the ongoing fallout from the East Palestine train derailment. Of course,
we'll
the
be
EPA.
on that. We'll be on that in a minute. So I don't have a balloon here for I don't have a balloon here for the Aleutians, but I do have one here that can help you a bit. Now, do you want to go on that there for us? Okay. Now I'll make it bigger. Okay. Except it's going to have to stay that way, and it can't do that silly thing. Here you go. All right, that's big enough, right? They can see it, right?
Yep.
Okay.
We can zoom
So
in
the
there.
Aleutians, you see, the Aleutians were up here. They were up here. So the balloon came like this. So we don't know when he found out about it. If it was the 28th of January, it was probably about here, which makes the explanation that he couldn't blow it up completely nonsense because he's over the North Atlantic Ocean. But then it's pretty much nonsense as well because it came down to the United States this way. This is Upper Alaska here. This is Upper Alaska. There's nobody there. When he finally gets to Montana, there are 7 people per 1 mile. Think maybe you could have squeezed this balloon in somewhere. That's when CBS rats you out because you, Joe, were never going to tell us. You know that. And the American people don't know that because they don't focus on this. But if CBS hadn't ratted you out, you would never tell us this. This was going to go down in the big book of all the horrible things you do. Who knows what the hell you're doing in the White House and Hunter? Who's getting the money? Who's getting the money for the drawings? The Chinese paying for that too? They pay for everything else. But we finally caught you up here, or that's where CBS got you, up here in Montana. See, and this is where you had another choice to take it down. Now, I would think if you have military that were trained in places like our military academies, not the Chinese or the Russians, they would tell you that this balloon is not too far from Maelstrom Air Base in Montana, which has sensitive nuclear facilities. And Joe, it really doesn't look like a weather balloon. They don't send weather balloons all the way over from China here to check out. They do not do daily weather reports on Chinese stations. Like the weather today in Montana will be, but they like to do things like there are 4,500 nuclear warheads, approximately 15,000 feet below the ground. And they seem to have approximately that they like to do so that if someday they come to destroy us, they'll be prepared because unlike you, they want to kill us. You don't seem to want to kill them. You seem to want to get money from them. So you decide here, once again, you're not going to take them down. Even though, as I said, this state here, just think about that. 7 people every 1 mile. And it tends to be congregated in certain cities, which means you got it. You go miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles, and there ain't nobody. So that's a lie. Then you decide to settle into a pattern with your friends, the Chinese. You decide that the United States Air Force is going to escort this spy balloon that wants to go to 2 more air bases and see if they can get more information about our nuclear capacity. And you send our airplanes with them, not so that you can stop them from photographing, but just so you can watch them. What are you trying to figure out their photographic technique? You know what that means, Joe? They were collecting intelligence, something you don't do. And finally, when it got all the way here, all the way over there, kind of got off the map. You see, there's Warren Air Force Base, there's Millstrom, there's Minot Air Base. Those are the three where they have evidence that they stopped for quite some time to take very intricate intelligence photos of our nuclear capacity, both offensive and defensive. I'm sorry, and you want to take me off, take me off. But a president who does that is a traitor. A president who lets China do that is a traitor. I think George Washington would have hung him. I do. Like he did Benedict Arnold. The Chinese have vowed to overtake us. The Chinese have killed 70 million of their own people. The Chinese don't play games. They're not silly men like you are.
Thanks.
They may be crooks, but they're damn tough crooks. You're a silly crook. So the plane gets offshore. I mean, the balloon gets offshore. And now you shoot it down. What the hell good did that do? It got all the pictures that it wanted. They all went back to China. And now you shoot it down. Did you apologize for shooting it down? Did you ask permission of your Chinese overlords? You know they gave you more than 31.2 million. You know that, right? I know that. Just got to get into the offshore accounts, right, Joe? With the woman that the FBI never went to see. Back in January of 2020. Remember her? A lot more skeletons.
That's right.
In that closet, my friend. A lot more skeletons. When you're a crook of that dimension, it's real, real bad. Real bad. Now, I want you to notice, however, that this did change the policy of your government about shooting down balloons, as expressed by that foreign policy expert, Kamala Harris. Let's listen to Kamala on MSNBC, since no one else did.
They have said today that it was accidental, that we're overreacting, that there can't be this kind of dialogue given our reaction, or there shouldn't be this kind of dialogue. We will maintain the perspective that we have in terms of what should be the relationship between China and the United States.
Do you know what that means?
That is not going to change, but surely and certainly that balloon was not helpful, which is why we shot it down.
I don't know. I don't want to be overly critical, but could that be the stupidest thing you ever heard? The balloon was not helpful. That's why we shot it down. Did you really say that? The balloon was not helpful. So that's why we shot it down. We're going to shoot down all the balloons that are not helpful now?
Bizarre.
Well, but Joe came to the rescue. Superman came to the rescue. These Northern Illinois Balloon Club people, who probably are a bunch of white supremacist murderers. They're probably Catholics. They probably are. They're probably Catholics. They probably go to the Latin Mass. In Troibo ad Altado. Oh, they're going to come and get me. They're going to come and get me. I got it memorized. Holy shit. Man, they're going to
They might even be pro-life.
Oh, my God. I read Virgil. And at Christmas, I read the Latin Mass all straight through just for fun, just to enjoy it, because I'm what am I if I read the Latin Mass? I'm a
Domestic terrorist?
I'm a domestic terrorist. Yeah. Yeah. If you want to protect your child from being mutilated, you're a domestic terrorist also in the eyes of our crooked attorney general. So, boy, you really gave it to that Northern Illinois balloon club, didn't you? Man, you found that balloon. You were Captain Joe. Kids are going to ask for little rings, Captain Joe rings like you have. And you shot it down. You shot down that one. Hey, Joe, you got one down. Now, it did take you 2 shots. And it was just a $12 balloon. And you had a $400,000 Sidewinder missile, which you used twice for a total of $800,000 that you cost us. I don't know if that was a good deal. $800,000, and you shot down a $12 balloon because it wasn't doing any good. Then you did 2 more. Man, you got those down too. Man, turns out they were useless also. Well, we think they're useless. You can't find them now. But you were able to shoot them down over land, line number 1, right? And then your military kind of double-crossed you and put out the fact that these balloons, the first one, was a very, very sophisticated spying apparatus that had the capacity to get shots that a satellite way up there doesn't get. So that means they got critical information if it should come to the day that they want to bomb us. Oh, and by the way, you gave away Bagram Air Base very early on, only 400 miles from China, which would have been a very strategic place for us to bomb them. And now your stupid assistants are looking for one about 1,000 miles from China. Doesn't seem like that was a good choice, Joe. And then one reporter finally asked the question, could this be because you're compromised? I mean, do you think it's unfair that we ask these questions? You give away an airbase 400 miles from China that an American president may someday curse you for not having. You let a Chinese balloon, you escort it all around the country as it photographs our military facilities. You shoot down 3 useless balloons outside of the United States. Well, 1 over the United States, the other 2 outside the United States. Is it unfair for us to ask Joe, were you affected by the extraordinary amount of money over the last 5 years your family got? $31 million with statements in the hard drive that says that you got half of that. Your son tells your granddaughter, I've been giving half of the money to dad for 30 years. I've given half of my income to dad for 30 years. So now, do you think if we put all that together, you really think it's unfair if we ask you if you took that money from China, number 1, and number 2, if it affects you in selling out to people of the United States? Because it sure looks like it. People are entitled to have defenses, but they're not entitled to get away with things like this. Well, now let's go to the next one. Let's go to East Palestine, Ohio, a modest place, kind of a American, kind of Americana, right? Used to be quite a thriving town, steel, right on the border of Pennsylvania and Ohio, which used to be a very thriving area. And all of a sudden, changes, particularly you and your left-wing one world crowd doing trade agreements, robbed them of all their jobs, which is why Ohio voted against you and why Pennsylvania voted against you both times. Notice what I said. Get it real clear. Any of you listening. That's why Pennsylvania voted against you both times. Because you, Joe, were one of the biggest and most instrumental people and your Democrat friends in robbing them of their jobs. Thousands of jobs that went to China. They know it. The New York Times people, who've got lots of money and they don't have to worry, and their parents are probably paying for them. They never were deprived of jobs like that. But all of Western Pennsylvania and Middle Ohio was. I'm like in for a secret because I spend a lot of time there. They don't like you, Joe. They've never liked you. And now they really dislike you. Well, it just so happens in that particular town where this train blew up, went off rail, that particular town voted 77% for Trump. Well, we know what they are, right? In your definition, those are white supremacists who are terrorists, who are MAGA people. And I don't know if you agree with your friend Hillary's description as deplorables, but you may have called them worse. They're certainly racist. You're not. You're not, although if you go to that hard drive, your son sounds like he was brought up with the N-word being used rather frequently, Joe. Huh? How about, I don't want my kids to go to school in the jungle, referring to black neighborhoods, Joe. How about being palsy-wowsy with the former head of the Ku Klux Klan in West Virginia and speaking at his eulogy, Joe? And you have the audacity to accuse other people of being a racist? Well, I don't think there's any reason to believe that these people in East Palestine are racist, but I think you do from the things you say. You've any number of times announced that we're systemically racist, which means systemically means everyone. I know you're not good with words, but systemically, as distinguished from individually, sporadically, these are all words that are too tough for a guy who was left back in the 3rd grade. But we'll work on that. When you get into prison, there are remedial courses for people like you, if you got something left. So you don't pay attention to this. I may be wrong, and I'm ready to be corrected. I do not think you've made a statement about this. You must really hate these people. 50 trains derail. 11 of them are carrying extremely sensitive chemicals that not only can cause cancer, but can morph over a period of time of burning into 5 or 6 other types of chemicals. And like we found out during the pandemic, which you were panicked about, things can happen that we don't quite understand when chemicals start burning at 1,000 degrees and 2,000 degrees. So within 2 days into this, somebody makes the decision, not your Secretary of Transportation, who's nowhere to be found, not any of the officials of your administration who are nowhere to be found, and not you, but someone makes a decision they're going to have a controlled burn. They're going to blow the whole thing so it doesn't spread for days and days. I am told by experts, and I think you've seen them on television, that's a debatable decision. Not saying it was the wrong decision, but most experts say it was made without enough information. Well, you did. You blew it. And now, within 4 days, you had, this is a count now from one day, 3,500 fish, 1,000 dogs, and various other animals dead. Polluted water within about an 8 square mile area. Pollution stretching already about 8 miles away in the river. It eventually ended up 22 miles away. An odor that is still there. People who are sick, headaches and whatever. And very, very little information on the long-term impact. And having lived through this, I can tell you, do not take this for granted, my friend. But what did you do? Nothing. In fact, the mayor of the town, who seems like a very fine man, asked you for FEMA's help. You declined. He asked a second time, and you declined. I'm going to tell you, Joe, when I was mayor of New York for 8 years, I was never denied FEMA aid. 7 of those 8 years, Bill Clinton was the president. He was a Democrat like you are. I'm a Republican. Did you know that?
Mayor, we're getting some questions, too, on this subject.
We're getting some questions, Mayor, on this very subject. And obviously 9/11 is a very unique challenge and a unique crisis. But what was the immediate response from the federal government
Was FEMA even around at that? Was FEMA?
FEMA was
So-
not only around. The head of FEMA was in New York at 2:00 in the afternoon.
So yeah. So explain to us how.
The
What was the response from the
head
federal
of
government?
FEMA,
Post.
the head of FEMA was in touch with us before President Bush could get to us. The Vice President Cheney put the head of FEMA in touch with Governor Pataki and I, and we met him at the Javits Convention Center. And we sat down. We had a half-hour talk, and the head of FEMA decided to defer to the two of us and to work for us. He said, "I'm going to put you guys in charge because you know New York better. You tell me how you want me to use my resources."
So that's obviously something that
That's
you're
a patriot. Yeah. That's a guy who cares about the country rather than I'm important. I'm very important.
I mean, we're 3 weeks into this now, the situation in East Palestine.
Yeah, this is
Haven't
complete.
heard from the president. I mean, he's in
Has he not?
Kiev, he's in
We have
Warsaw.
an
he's in-
audience. I'm going to ask them a question. Does anybody have any recollection of President Biden saying anything about East Palestine?
So we have a live audience here, and you'll meet a couple of our audience
actually
members.
can't believe that. I
Yeah,
can't.
he must have said something. Let
Maybe.
me look. Let me
What
look.
is East Palestine? I thought it was near Israel.
That's what I'm thinking, right? East Palestine. He thinks that's west of
Is he
Israel.
going to stop in Israel? I mean, this could happen.
Speaking of the president, Mayor, we have some guests tonight. I'm not sure if you're done with your rundown of top stories, but
I am. I'm just looking up. I'm just going to put in any statement from. Well, you do it for me. Any statement from Biden on East Palestine.
I will look into
Even
that.
things like, why is it pronounced that way?
That is a good question. East Palestine. The mayor of East Palestine has actually come out against both Biden and Mayor Pete.
The mayor who says it's happened 1,000 times this year.
That's right. East Palestine Mayor Trent Conaway was asked to give his thoughts on Biden's surprise visit to Ukraine on Monday, as well as to Poland, while he's dealing with the crisis here at home in East Palestine. This is the mayor of East Palestine. That was the biggest slap in the face. That tells you right away he doesn't care about us, Conaway told Fox News. So he can send every agency he wants to. But I found that out this morning. And one of the briefings that he was in the Ukraine giving millions of dollars away to people over there, but not to us here in Ohio. And that makes me furious. That's words from
all I
the
can say to the mayor is Biden goes where the money is. He made a lot more money in Ukraine than he did in East Palestine. He never got any money from them.
Mayor, is this?
And the guy's not a president; he's a crook.
What a slap in the face to taxpayers, U.S. taxpayers, you, me, the good people watching this program. Their money, nothing against the people of Ukraine, but their money is going to help the people of Ukraine in all sorts of ways. Yet our president, our federal government is ignoring the hardworking, good people of East Palestine, Ohio. Our money is being sent to people on the other side of the world instead of the people right here at home.
So he declined FEMA twice. But then when Trump announced the other day he was going, he has now sent FEMA. Do you need to know anything else about how political he is?
Does it say something about that? He does it without question, right? What does it say about our media, Mayor, and the permanent Washington political class that Biden, he doesn't just do this, but he doesn't even second guess it. Wouldn't you second guess a trip like that if you have a situation in the Midwest? Wouldn't you at least second guess maybe we shouldn't go?
Maybe they are calculating because they are very, very political. Maybe they're calculating. Yeah, anyone, please. Maybe they're calculating that. Maybe they're calculating that it'll go away. That this is not it is not that big. You got to get close so that we can see you. Are the cameras in good shape?
We're doing a little trick here, Mayor, where I'm actually focusing on you, not on our guests. So then we can do TV magic. We can slide the camera over once we're ready to introduce her. So as of now, because of the magic of we say television, but we're online. The people aren't even aware of your very special guest sitting to your right.
Let's put the camera on her.
So we have with us tonight Nicole Kipralov. She is the campaign chairwoman of the New York Young Republican Club. And of course, she has a lot of experience in New York politics. Nicole, she still, as of today, works in New York politics and government. She was for a long time Vicky Palladino's chief of staff. And again, of course, now is the New York Young Republican Club's campaign chairwoman. Hello, Nicole. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Mayor. This is quite an honor.
Well, it's a great pleasure. Great pleasure. So tell me, what do you think about our president's response to all of this? And what's the political calculation? Is this the way he's running? Is he running for office, or is it just he doesn't care anymore?
So, I think we're noticing a pattern here, because you were just talking about, Mr. Mayor, how the mayor of East Palestine was outraged at the president's trip to Ukraine, and he's completely leaving behind Americans and prioritizing Ukraine in this absolutely critical time. And we're noticing a pattern because just recently, Mayor Adams, of course, the mayor of New York City, was actually pleading with the president to do something about the southern border that is causing a tremendous influx of illegal migrants into New York City, that is going to be costing the city billions and billions
It's
of
ridiculous.
dollars.
The amount of money, when I saw it, really shocked me. Of course, I've been out of office 20 years, and therefore inflation really, the budget when I was in office was 38 billion. It's now over 100. So that's quite a jump. So take everything and multiply it by more than 2, right? Everything is at least more than 2. So that's an incredible amount of money. We don't spend that kind of money on the homeless.
We are going through a homelessness crisis right now. We're going through a mental health crisis. This city is going through a housing crisis. Every possible type of crisis you can imagine, a crime crisis, and it's only being exacerbated by the migrant crisis. And the president, once again, is nowhere to be found. Where is President Biden when New York City needs him? Where is President Biden when Ohio needs him? Well, he's in Ukraine, or he's somewhere else. He's not addressing the issues that are important to America, that are killing Americans, literally killing Americans every single day.
Well, there's the broader question: where is President Biden? Like, existentially, where is he? I mean, sometimes I don't know where he is. When he turns around and finishes his speech and he looks for somebody to grab his arm, I'm wondering, where, like, it's time for the Happy Valley Nursing Home and places like that where, but he shouldn't be running a country. People are getting killed as a result of this idiot's, what he's doing. And, you describe what, we got people from all over the country on. You describe pretty much American cities. We were just in Nashville. You could be describing Memphis. You could be describing St. Louis. You could be describing Philadelphia. I mean, it used to be, there were a couple of bad cities, maybe 3, maybe 4. Like in New York at one time was terrible, and then New York was great. But when New York was terrible, there was nothing like New York. New York was the crime capital of America. Every other city, people were afraid to come to New York. We're not even the crime capital anymore. There are cities with more crime than we have.
It's hard to believe.
And even in New York, Rochester has more crime per capita than we do. I mean, New York is one of the crime capitals as a state. New York is maybe 18th, 19th. So the problem you're describing is a problem that is all of America, and a president and a political party that do everything to make it worse, and just ignore the people coming in over the border. They see people dying of fentanyl by massive numbers. It's exceedingly dangerous because you can sneak it into any drug. I mean, I was never a drug user, but if I was, I'd stop right away because of fentanyl. Unless I wanted to die, I'd say, you have no idea. You can get an over-the-counter drug and they might slip some in.
But, I think the saddest part about all of this, when you said, where is Biden? There was a time when I actually felt bad for the guy because he's just so confused all the time. He really just is. He just doesn't know what he's doing, and I just feel bad. I have a lot of empathy for the guy, but at this point, I just really don't care. Who I feel bad for right now are the small business owners in Ohio, the small business owners in New York City who just a few days ago were just screaming on the streets because the hospitality industry is getting hit right now because we're putting up tens of thousands of migrants in these hotels. And, I actually worked in City Hall when we started dealing with the migrant crisis. And let me tell you, Mr. Mayor, the worst part about
when was that? When was the
a few months ago.
Right.
A few months ago is when this really took off. And everyone asked, where's Biden? Where's Biden? We know this is a federal problem. But the worst part about this is that there were actually reasonable, rational, common sense members of the city council, such as Council Member Palladino, who had common sense, specific, cost-effective plans to deal with our migrant crisis, our drug crisis, our homelessness crisis, and they were deliberately shut down. This is all deliberate. This is all deliberately putting America last. It's putting New York last. It's putting Ohio last. It's putting all of these cities last. It's putting America last.
Well, the real core of it is the Democrats want control of it because you don't spend that much money without corruption. And they want it to go to their not-for-profits, to their NGOs who have their people, their wife, their uncle, their cousin, their campaign contributor, the guy who's kicking money back to them. This has been going on since the Great Society. My first prosecution was in 1973. It's been going on in every Democratic administration. And it's the reason why the budget of New York is twice the budget of Florida, because they don't have that corruption. They have the same services we have. They just don't have all the crooks. Let's take one Hochul deal. Hochul bought a COVID test. She spent $600 million for the COVID test. The exact same number of COVID tests cost California $300 million 4 months earlier. Difference is she got a $300 million contribution from the company, which California didn't exact. So the company built the bribe into the money that you paid. But that's what's going on. Adams is given out to his homeless people that support him. He's got deals with all the city council members. They've got their homeless people. All those neighborhoods are filled with crooks, and they're getting money. And that's why you say, well, gee, I'll give you a guarantee. If you made me mayor for 6 months, I could cut the budget in half and you wouldn't feel it. I bet you wouldn't feel it, except for the police and the fire. Them, I'd have to increase. The rest of it, if I cut it, you wouldn't feel it. I cut 12,000 people from the hospitals. The hospitals got better. People just sitting around taking care of empty hospital beds. They're put there by Charlie Rangel. It's the corruption of the Democrat Party has a lot to do with the decrepit nature of these cities like Chicago and New York. And thank you for trying to give the Republican Party a chance, because they need us here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your strong voice as well. It's very much needed.
Yeah, I mean, we need it. You look at Chicago, right? Chicago has been Democratic rule for 50 years. And what happens every month, every weekend is it 5 murders? Is it 10 murders? Is it 15? Is it 20? 20 murders, 25 murders.
So we're very thankful for Nicole joining us.
We got a few more minutes if somebody else would like to.
We do, and we have another guest that's going to be joining us, Daniela May. So we'll let Daniela get set here. Mayor, the president did come out a couple hours ago with something on East Palestine. So we'll be prepared to read that in just a moment. But while we're getting Daniela set up, Mayor, can you kind of go over what your immediate response would be? Let's say you're the mayor of a smaller town. Granted, this isn't New York, right? This is a small town. What would kind of be your initial response
to Biden? If I were a mayor right now,
not to Biden right now.
I would take the statement, I would tear it up, I put it in an envelope, and I send it back to the White House. And I would say 2 weeks later, doesn't mean a shit. But what good is this, you jerk? Please retire. You're not. You read the 25th Amendment. It says you have to be a sound mind. If that's a sound mind, we're in trouble. Tragic. He's speaking about it now. He's making a statement now. Is he back? By the way, from Ukraine?
They sent out a picture. I'm gonna show this to you in a minute here. They sent out a picture of the president on the phone, and then they listed about 10 different people he was on the phone with.
Well, maybe he was talking to people in East Palestine.
We would hope so. Okay, so our next guest tonight is Daniela May.
Daniela, how are you?
Daniela is the vice chairwoman of the New York Young Republican Club, Black Caucus. And Daniela is also, I'll let Daniela kind of go over what she's currently doing, running for the city council here in the city of New York as a Republican.
Where? Tell us where.
Let us know where and
the
give us the
election?
details.
District 31, that's in Southeast Queens. That's Rosedale, Laurelton, Edgemere, JFK Airport.
Right, Nick Kennedy?
Yes, the whole entire Kennedy Airport is in my district.
Oh, wow. That's a
Yes.
good district.
It is.
My friend Rudy Washington lives there.
Oh.
Is Rudy helping you?
I
We're going to call Rudy and have him help you. Rudy's a very big Republican. He was my deputy mayor for 8 years, a very dedicated Republican.
From where is he from?
He's from that area.
Do you know this name?
Rudy Washington. We'll get Rudy involved.
Let's get Rudy
Rudy's
involved.
Very, very useful.
Daniela is a nurse. I think she'll tell you she doesn't have much of a political background before this.
That's good.
Although people say that, but they often have more than
Don't
they
you
think, right?
that's
Just based
good
on.
nowadays. I mean, I know that helps you, but I honestly mean I like that because I think people with a political background, not all of them, but they're already prejudiced.
Yes. I love the fact that I don't have the political background because I've actually been outside and I've seen it. I've worked in the field. So I have just great like grassroots and just understanding what the people actually want because I'm one of them. I work with amongst them.
So you were a nurse during the pandemic?
Yes, I was.
Oh, wow. You look too young.
Yes. I learned a lot. I did a lot of the COVID test and vaccination, and I briefly did some work with the migrants. And when I saw that, I really realized how quickly the migrants get support. And our people are so homeless. They come in and they get a physical, they get all their shots for their kids, they get voucher, and all of this is happening within a week or two of them coming to the hotels in Manhattan. So that was really, I was disgusted by seeing that and all the homeless people on the streets. It really, really did open up my eyes.
I don't blame you. I mean, that's a travesty. I mean, yeah, sure. I guess we have to help, but we have to help our own people first and foremost, right?
Yes.
And
100%.
if we're doing less for our own people, that's a real breakdown of faith,
Yes.
and it really destroys the city. People want to leave the city as a result of that.
Yes. I think it's all part of a bigger plan because I think people in the city are actually starting to wake up now and starting to realize that the left isn't really doing what they're supposed to be doing for us. And I think that they're allowing these migrants to come in. They create their own army of people who will continuously vote for them because they provided so much for them. So I
Right.
do think it's a part of a bigger plan that we're not really seeing.
Well, I think that's true. I think that's a very, very good point. And I hope it results in some major changes. The problem is Mayor Adams says it, tries it, but then he gets interfered with and then he backs off. And I have a feeling that if he had the support, we'd be okay. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's just mouthing it, but he says the right thing. And then he gets cut off by the governor or the president and doesn't get the support. I think if he got the support, we'd be able to handle this a lot better.
I think so. He says a lot of things that he would like to get done. I'm not sure why it's not happening, but he has some good points that, make sense, but I just feel like it's not being handled properly.
So now how can people support you?
You can go to my website, Daniela4ny.com. And
Daniela4ny.com.
We're gonna put this on our screen here. DANIELLA. The number 4?
No, spelled out. FOR.
FOR
NY.com.
NY.com. Daniela4ny.com.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, a big part of campaigning is the budget, having the resources to get your message out to the people. And as the mayor can tell you, I'm not saying anything he can't tell you, we are at a disadvantage as Republicans, as conservatives, especially in New York City. So if you can find a few extra dollars, every dollar counts in these things.
Absolutely.
If you can find it within you to find a few extra dollars and send it to Daniela at DanielaForNY.com, that money will go so far in helping Daniela get her message out. And this is someone with very little previous political experience. I'm sure she doesn't want to sit on the phone asking for money all day, but unfortunately, that's what it takes. So I know we have a strong, loyal audience. I'll let the mayor make the
Yeah,
ask.
you know, whether you're in New York or you're in California, we share these problems. So we should help you in your local races, and you should help us in our local races. This is a national problem, the deterioration of New York. I don't know. Los Angeles might be worse. We know San Francisco is worse. We know Portland is worse. We know Philadelphia is worse. So, I mean, this is no longer, there was a time before you were born when this was a New York problem. This is no longer just a New York problem. This is an American problem. It's a problem of the American cities. And as I said, New York's not the worst. New York has more resources than most other cities. And still, you know, but on the other hand, our problems tend to be bigger because, again, we have more people. But somebody like you is exactly what we need. Somebody new, fresh, looking at it honestly, and looking for common sense solutions. You get a small group of people like that together, and they can make a very big difference.
Yes, 100%. I believe that more people in my age bracket are waking up and just starting to realize that we need to make a change. And in order to make that change, sometimes you have to switch parties. I wasn't always a Republican. I just switched over in November because I came to realization that in order to make a significant change, especially in my district, you have to change the party in order to get a good solution.
Well, I was not always a Republican too. I changed way back during Ronald Reagan's time, but and it was because of the corruption in the city that did it. That and some issues of foreign policy, but mostly corruption in the city and the way they let cities down. You know, they promised them so much, and if you look at the amount of money that have been spent on cities, all the problems should have been solved by now. Except the money didn't get to the people.
Start to wonder where all that money goes.
I got an idea.
Thanks for joining us. And before we let you go, Daniela, again, if you can find it within you, donate a few bucks. It takes a lot of courage to run for office, as the mayor would tell you, especially as a conservative this day and age. So, if for any other reason, support our friend Daniela for having the courage to stand up and fight and speak her mind at a time when it's tough to do so. It's tough to go against the accepted narrative, the accepted speech, as the mayor knows all too well. And Daniela is, I'm sure, learning each and every day as she takes on the New York City Council as a Republican. I can't get over what a fight this must be. So we'll be following Daniela real close. So thank you for joining us this evening. Mayor, any more questions for Daniela before we
just the
let
best
her
of luck,
get back to
Keep
campaigning?
fighting. When's the election?
November
The
27th.
Okay. All right. Well, we got time.
Yes, we have time.
We got time to push.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Mayor, we are winding down. I've had some good calls even during the show. Someone wants you to call them after tonight's show to maybe go over some logistics for the next few days.
Okay.
It sounds like they might be on board. And we may not want to make any announcement yet. Maybe we'll make the announcement on social media later. I'll leave that up to you. But why don't you close us out? We have 5 minutes left tonight in what we like to call the fastest hour on the internet, America's Mayor Live, with America's Mayor, Rudolph W. Giuliani. So just 5 minutes to go, a very busy news week, a lot going on. It's not slowing down. What message do you have to our loyal viewers, which tonight is numbering in the thousands across social media platforms?
I think that we should be together as Americans. I remember. I mean, September 11 was a once in a lifetime situation, but people got together as New Yorkers when that happened, and they got together as Americans. And I think we owe the people of little New Palestine our support, particularly since our president double-crossed them. And I guess what Ted is referring to is we're really thinking about going there and seeing if we can bring a few ideas that come from handling hundreds of emergencies. No, Pete Pipsqueak, there was not thousands of crashes like this. No, there's a rather unusual one. People are suffering. Who knows? They may die. Your callousness is only allowed because you're a crooked Democrat. That's I mean that's the only reason the press lets you get away with statements like that. Had you been a Republican cabinet member, they'd rip you apart, particularly when you were absent during the supply chain disaster. I didn't even take your job seriously. I don't know how we get through the next 2 years except by sticking together. They're going to be a tough 2 years if this guy maintains that he wants to remain in it. And let me tell you, and this is not exaggeration, the illness that he has gets worse. There is no way under God's earth, or God's son, that dementia gets better. No way. It could remain that way for a fairly substantial period of time, which is pretty bad. More likely than not, over a 2-year period, he's going to have a big decline. He's already had several big declines. His inability to remember that he was told that his father and uncle were dead and not to tell the story again is, to the doctors that I talk to, a real indication that it's advancing very quickly. That was about the time they hurried up their efforts to pretend he's running for president and sent him off on these different journeys. This one he got away with. They were hiding things in this one. The other one, he showed up in Cambodia and thought he was in Colombia and said hello to the Prime Minister of Colombia. There's a chance he fell going up the stairs again, but it was hidden. You can see a body coming down and everybody getting around poor Joe falling, going up the stairs. I used to feel sorry for him like you did. I used to. Now I feel sorry for our people. I feel sorry that we have to endure this crooked president and crooked family in the White House. And I must say, it's very significant that Jimmy Carter is at his last. Jimmy Carter was, up until now, I guess, considered the weakest president of the last 50 years. Jimmy is going to die knowing that that's been lifted from him definitively. I mean, I lived through Jimmy Carter. It wasn't like this. It was bad. Oh, yeah, it was bad. Cars lined up, couldn't get gas, hostages, Americans getting killed, crime out of control, all the same Democrat crap. But it wasn't as bad. And we had a president who loved the country and a good man. Not a competent man, but a good man. This is a different kind of thing. So let's stick together. You stick with me, I'll stick with you, and we'll keep getting you the information you don't get elsewhere. Who concentrated on the fact that he didn't put out a statement? Nobody, right? Now, he may have put out a statement. He may have. Of course, it's ridiculous at this point, isn't it? 12, 13, 14 days later.
Mayor, this is probably indicative of who's running the show now. I'm guessing he felt that a tweet thread 20 days after the event would suffice as a response from the President of the United States. This is the President's response from our friend Ashley. She was able to get that over to us. And that is his response now 20 days after.
Notice he didn't talk to the mayor. After my speech today, I spoke with EPA Michael Regan, who showed up about 8 days late, Senator Sherrod Brown, who was confused about whether to drink the water, Representative Bill Johnson, who I don't know.
He's a great guy, and his office is working directly with us.
I don't know Bill Johnson. Governor Shapiro, who's not worth talking to, and Governor Mike DeWine, who was late himself in asking for help here, and seems to be a little tired. Mike seems a little tired. This seems to be maybe a little too much for the rhino. Maybe a little too much for him.
But that's his response.
But I noticed the
Show the-
mayor of the town got no call because the mayor of the town said it like it is today, didn't he?
Yeah, and Biden didn't like that, so
What-
Biden's
what did he
choosing to
say?
punch down to the
What-
mayor
what-
of East Palestine.
What did the mayor of East Palestine say to the president of the United States? What, that he's a bum?
A slap in the face that the president of the United States is in Ukraine and Poland and not in Ohio.
So Biden couldn't sustain that, so he can't call the mayor of the town.
That's what I think this was. I think the president, look, I'll be fair. Maybe it was the president's team.
Don't be fair.
Oh,
There's no
the
reason
president's team chose this. That was a slight against the mayor. They left him out of that response because the mayor is a Republican. And, they're so that's insane to me. I don't care if the mayor's attacking you. You're the president of the United States.
They put a Republican in there. They left out the Republican who told the truth about it.
Yeah. They left out the small town mayor. And they think they're real big shots, huh? They think they're real tough guys.
They left in everybody that suck it up, but they didn't leave in the mayor.
And as you said this whole time, Mayor, what we're seeing in East Palestine, this isn't a reaction to the fact that these people voted for Trump. This only highlights the forgotten men and women of this country and how long they've been ignored for literally decades, if not half a century. So this highlights that fact. But these people have been ignored. These rural Americans, the backbone of this country.
Yeah, this is exactly what the New York Times,
is why
and the
Trump won.
Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal, and all of them leave out of the analysis of Donald Trump. This is his army. This is the army that I saw for the first time in Ohio in May of 2016. I saw 15,000 people outside in a 90-degree day. And I said to the president, then Donald, we better wait until they get inside. He said, oh no, Rudy, there are 10,000 people inside. I said, wait, there's 15,000 people out here and there are 10,000 people inside? This is May? Yeah, that's the kind of crowd we've been getting. And I said, you're worried that you're going to win? You don't get those crowds the day before the election. I've been in 7 presidential campaigns, including my own, including some great presidents like Ronald Reagan. Nothing like this. I remember John Kennedy. Nothing like this. I mean, our charismatic presidents in my lifetime were I'm not saying the good ones are bad ones. I'm saying the charismatic ones were Kennedy, Reagan, Clinton, Obama. They had the ability to deliver a crowd. Lyndon Johnson would get up and, my name is Lyndon Johnson, and we are going to continue our war in Vietnam. I couldn't pronounce Vietnam. Vietnam. Okay, Lyndon, good. We're going to continue it. How many more troops are we going to kill? And then he did the Great Society, which bankrupted us to this day. He was dead. Jimmy was pretty deadly. The Great Malaise. We're finished. We don't have much of a future. That's really like great stuff to say to people. It really gets them excited. America's on the decline. That's good, Jim. I'm sorry you're dying, but and you got a break here with Jerko. And Reagan was stupendous, possibly the best. Better than Kennedy. The only one I would say that was similar to him was Clinton. Obama had very much the same appeal, didn't have the intellectual depth that Clinton and Reagan had. Believe it or not, Reagan was a very, very smart man. To prove that to yourself, get his book of love letters to his wife that he wrote himself, and you will see that he was a better speechwriter than his speechwriters. I used to write speeches for him, so I know that.
For Reagan, you wrote speeches for Reagan?
Those were the 4 presidents that could really get a crowd.
What was Eisenhower? You were too young for that.
Probably not.
Really?
Not. From what I can see on television, a dull president.
Interesting.
Dull president, as Truman was and as Roosevelt was not. But Nothing like a Trump audience.
Oh,
Those
Trump,
crowds.
yeah, nothing comes.
There's nothing like that. There's been nothing like that in American politics. And they love him for the reason we're living through right now. They love him because he made a connection with them. He's a New York multi-billionaire. It's the weirdest damn thing in the world that he'd make the connection with them. But they feel like he understands, what would Clinton say, understands their pain. Watch him. I wouldn't count him out by any means. I mean, DeSantis doesn't have that. DeSantis got a lot, but he doesn't have that. That's magic. That's political magic. And let's see what happens tomorrow. But these people are going to be, they could be on cloud 9 for 5 weeks after release.
There's one other person in GOP politics that has it, Mayor, outside of President Trump. You know who that is?
Well, I know what you're going to say, but I don't have what he has. I wish I
That's
did.
right. I'm looking at him. And I stand by this today. The
I'm
greatest ticket we
realistic
could ever
enough.
ask for.
I'm realistic enough to know, like when I would go off on my own, I used to introduce him all the time. The last 3 weeks of the campaign, I went off on my own. I used to get 10,000 people,
Of course.
but he used to get 25,000.
And
So
Biden would get 4.
I know. And I would send him little notes saying, here's a mini Trump rally.
And he loved that. As long as you put the word.
Well, we'll be back tomorrow night. I want to thank you ladies very much. I want to thank you also for being involved in politics, because if our younger generation doesn't get involved in politics, this country is kaput. Simple as that. So we need you really bad.
And a lot of positive reactions for Daniela, Nicole. I couldn't get to it, but in our comments, a lot of people were very excited to see them, to hear from them,
Well, they're very
and
exciting.
what they had
They're
to say.
very exciting additions, to the future. Wow.
Well, so we'll have to invite them back on and stay
Well,
up
we
to date
will.
with what they're up to.
I'm more than happy to do that, because this is what a political party is all about. The party of Lincoln, as opposed to the Democrat Party, the party of slavery. We will be back with you tomorrow, possibly either from New Palestine or somewhere on the way to New Palestine, which Ted will tell me where it is before I announce what it is, so I don't make a fool out of myself.
Let's see what the budget
Okay.
looks like.
So good night, and God bless America, and say a special prayer